motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Another look at Lou Dibella's proposed tournament, 8-woman tournament, for the bantamweight division, involving all three of the reigning champions at that weight and several former champions like Nina Hughes and Jamie Mitchell, Shannon Courtenay. I noticed that one name wasn't mentioned, one former champion, Ebony Bridges. Ebony hasn't fought since she lost her IBF title to Japan's own Miyo Yoshida, the current reigning IBF champion, set to participate in the tournament, and if they can get it over the line. I noticed that she wasn't mentioned among the 8 women that will be fighting in the tournament, which is unfortunate because whether you like Ebony or not, or her boxing, she has more of a profile than any of them, than the reigning champions and the former champions. In the UK market, the US market, the Australian market, Ebony Bridges is the most recognizable bantamweight in the entire division, whether you like her or not. And her participating in the tournament would lend itself to the tournament's profile. Now, I don't know if she wasn't mentioned because she doesn't want to participate. Maybe she doesn't. Maybe they approached her. Maybe they asked her and she doesn't want to do it. Maybe. I just noticed that she wasn't mentioned. I did notice that Shannon Courtenay was mentioned, who fought Ebony Bridges something like 2 or 3 years ago. Yet another former champion. I can only deduce that if Lou Dibella is entertaining the idea of having Shannon Courtenay participate in this tournament, and she's open to it, she's willing to do it, it's got to be because she's not with Matchroom anymore. We haven't seen Shannon Courtenay in a very long time. Shannon was last in action way back there in December of 2022. She sat out all of last year, and unless she books herself a fight soon, she might sit out all of this one. Doesn't help her chances in this proposed tournament that she hasn't fought in well over a year. Doesn't help her chances at all. The whole point of this thing is to crown an undisputed champion in the bantamweight division. And I'm sorry to say, if they do this, I don't think it's going to be Shannon.
Nope.
Some very interesting characters in there. Former champions Nina Hughes and Jamie Mitchell. They should spice things up, but I don't think they'll be the last women standing either.
Sorry.
I don't think it's going to be Canada's own Amanda Gaye. I don't think it's going to be Amanda Gaye either. I don't think she wins the tournament. The top 2 seeds in this tournament for me, it's really between New Zealand's Shernika Johnson and Dina Thorsland. You don't think Sharita Metcalf makes it to the end? Sharita's good. Sharita's best described as an outside fighter, a mover, a jabber, using the ring and moving lateral to set traps and walk the opponent into punches. But that's only going to work with certain girls.
That wouldn't work with Dina.
Dina Thorsland? Dina Thorsland encountered a fighter like that in Yuli Hangaluna. She tried to move around, stay behind the jab, use the ring.
It didn't work.
It didn't work for Yuli Hangaluna, who's long and limber like Sharita's long and limber. It didn't work for Yuli Hangaluna. It wouldn't work for Sharita Metcalf. So as good as she is, I think she gets beat.
She don't win the tournament.
No, when it comes to the top 2 seeds in the tournament, the 2 fighters that stand the best chance of winning it, I gotta say it's Shernika Johnson and Dina Thorsland. Shernika because she has more than one way of fighting a fight. She can box and punch, move around, be cerebral, but she can turn it up. She can apply pressure too. And we saw that in the Nina Hughes fight. She was laying into Nina Hughes, backing her up and backing her off, throwing punches and putting them together.
Pressure.
She surprised me in that fight because I didn't think she was going to fight that way. I thought she was going to move around and box. She decided to turn it up. What gives Shernika a shot at winning this thing is that she's adaptable. She has more than one way of fighting a fight, and she is several years younger than many of the participants. Younger than Jamie Mitchell, Nina Hughes, Sharita Metcalf.
Younger than Shannon Courtenay.
Than Miyo Yoshida. She's younger, she's fresher, and she's adaptable. She's got a shot. And the top seed in the tournament, the fighter that stands the best chance of winning, Denmark's unified champion, Dina Thorsland. She's athletic, like Shernika's athletic, and she's younger than most of these girls, but she's also stronger. Punch for punch, Dina's the biggest puncher in this entire tournament.
Dina's the best inside fighter in this entire tournament.
She's athletic enough to handle pressure if pressure is applied, though that seldom ever happens, and she's aggressive enough to apply pressure.
Put pressure on her opponents.
Dina Thorsland would be to this tournament what Alexander Usyk was to the World Boxing Super Series. It's that same dichotomy, that of all the girls here, Dina stands the best chance of winning.
But it really is a gauntlet. It really is the best versus the best at 118 pounds.
If they can do it, and there are logistics issues, extenuating circumstances like illness or injury.
That's why the tournament format is difficult to do in pro boxing, along with promoters and platforms, who's with who, what's it gonna pay.
In a very general sense, that's why you don't see the tournament format more often in pro boxing. It's a logistics nightmare. But if they can do this, and I hope they can, it's gonna be one hell of a tournament because every single one of these fights would be an action fight. I hope Lou succeeds. Men's super lightweight news. Newly crowned WBA super lightweight champion Isaac Cruz is ready to fight Tank Davis if called upon. I'm in top condition to be able to be considered to fight Gervonta on whatever date is available at the end of the year. And if it happens, I will be ready. I don't know what other names you can bring to the table for Gervonta, but I only hope it can be attractive to the fans.
He doesn't know what other names could be brought forward to Gervonta. How about Teofimo Lopez? How about Shakur Stevenson? Him and Shakur are at the same weight. You two ain't.
Well, so now you think the Shakur Stevenson fight is gonna happen?
No.
There's far too much that can go wrong with that fight. So supposedly the Gervonta Davis people are willing to take on Shakur next, since things didn't work out with Vasyl Lomachenko, but I don't have any faith in what they say. That's one end of it. The other end of it is that I don't know that Shakur will make the necessary sacrifices to make that fight happen. You've got problems and egos on both sides of it, to where them fighting each other at the end of this year just doesn't seem likely to me.
Sorry.
I don't think Team Davis is serious about fighting Shakur, and even if they are, I don't know that Shakur won't screw the pooch with whatever his demands are.
Too much that could go wrong.
Whereas with Isaac Cruz, who Gervonta has fought before and beat before, there's the added comfort of the devil that you know, because with Isaac, you know you can win the fight because you've won the fight before, and he's right there on your side of things.
Remember, in the last 2 years since he lost that decision to Gervonta, Isaac's focus has been getting a rematch with Gervonta, so much so he turned down an offer to fight Ryan Garcia. He ignored an order to fight Shakur Stevenson from the WBC. He's rejected one or two other fights with one or two other fighters because his sole focus seems to be getting another Gervonta Davis fight.
Echoing that sentiment here and now, ahead of the Rayo Valenzuela fight, if Isaac makes it through that fight, he's leaving himself ready, willing, and able to face Gervonta Davis at a moment's notice. Just like he did the first time, he wants to fight him again before this year is out.
He's gotta beat Rayo, though.
If he does, I could see a situation where Isaac drops back down to 135, but both the 135-pound title and the 140-pound title are on the line. Not dissimilar from what the WBA did when Gervonta fought Leo Santa Cruz. You'll remember, Leo's title was on the line, but Gervonta's regular title at 135, that was on the line as well. Pure chicanery.
They could do that with Isaac and Gervonta and their rematch, so that Gervonta's title is on the line and Isaac's title is on the line.
But what if Isaac loses to Rayo?
Then Gervonta will fight Rayo.
Don't forget, Rayo is just another PBC guy. He's just another PBC fighter that's on that side of the street. If he pulls the upset and he beats Isaac, Gervonta will fight him.
It's predictable.
I've said it before, if Rayo does pull the upset and he beats Isaac, that's not as big a fight. Not as big as an Isaac Cruz rematch would be, because Isaac's the one who's gaining momentum, notoriety. His career is the one that's gaining steam. Whereas Rayo, even if he wins,
it's still not the same thing. It doesn't make for as big a fight.
For Gervonta Davis. But for Gervonta Davis, I mean, it's not like he always goes for the biggest name or the biggest fight, so this would still be right up his alley.
None of this is good for the 140-pound division.
That one of its champions is more concerned with fighting a guy at 135 instead of unifying this weight class. And I know that Isaac made some mention of pursuing fights with the other champions that are there.
But he ain't serious.
The other champions that are there are near and apparent threats to Isaac Cruz that don't provide the same financial incentive that a Gervonta Davis fight would provide.
Risks versus rewards.
It's what it all boils down to for Isaac Cruz. Whether you like him or not, he's a limited fighter. He's entertaining. I'm not saying that he isn't. But in terms of nuts and bolts skills and where he is, he's a limited fighter that can be beat because he has been beat. And if you roll the dice with one of the other champions, that's what might happen.
You might get beat.
So I don't think they're going to roll the dice. I don't think they're going to risk it. In men's super middleweight news, a second look at Turki Alalshikh's comments, Turki Alalshikh's intentions for Terence Crawford, after this upcoming weekend's big fight, as well as Canelo's.
Canelo's fight in September?
His Excellency said, I will give Canelo what I think is a fair price. If he accepts it, he deals directly with me to finish the deal. I don't want anyone in the middle. I guaranteed Crawford a big fight. I want Canelo for Crawford, and Crawford wants Canelo. But if Canelo is crazy with his financial demands, I will still guarantee Crawford any fight he wants. The focus seems to be getting Terence Crawford the kinds of fights that he was deprived of for years while being frozen out by the PBC. That's what I take away from these comments. He wants to make sure Crawford is getting the fights he feels Crawford is deserving of, presumably a Canelo Alvarez fight. The issue,
I don't get the sense Turkey Alalshikh likes Canelo Alvarez too much.
whereas he seems to be very fond of Terence Crawford, not so fond of Canelo Alvarez. Canelo, who he said they would eat.
We will eat him.
An attempt to eclipse Canelo Alvarez on what is normally a day reserved for his fights this upcoming September, Mexican Independence Day. I don't think it's a good way to get Canelo to play ball by trying to bump him off what is normally his day of the year, 2 of his days of the year.
It's not a good way to start a relationship.
A business relationship. You're trying to convince Canelo Alvarez to fight Terence Crawford. It's not a good way to start off those negotiations by trying to take something from Canelo.
He's got his pride.
And his money. I said it in my previous video, and I'll say it again. Not only is Canelo Alvarez the top-earning boxer in all of boxing, but he got there without any Saudi money, without any help from them.
That's all. Grass, roots, following. Don't underestimate him.
It's not a good way to start off the negotiations for that fight, though at the same time, if anybody can get Canelo Alvarez the kind of money that he normally gets, and then some, the kind of money that he's used to, and more than that, it would be His Excellency. It would be Turkey Alalshikh, and the added pressure that Canelo Alvarez will be facing after the Edgar Berlanga fight. Now that David Benavidez has moved up to light heavyweight,
Doesn't look like the Canelo fight is happening for him.
now that doesn't look to be happening, beyond the Edgar Berlanga fight, if Canelo does what we're all expecting him to do, and he takes that guy out, who's he gonna fight after that? William Skull?
The winner of Skull versus Shishkin for the IBF title he was just stripped of?
Yeah, it's the second time the IBF stripped him of a title. The first time was at 160 when Sergey Didivianchenko was his mando. They couldn't reach a deal, so the IBF went ahead and took the belt from Canelo. Now they've done more or less the same thing. Beyond the Edgar Berlanga fight, Canelo's going to be hard-pressed to fight in a big fight.
And the winner of Skull versus Shishkin doesn't make for a big fight.
If you're not fighting David, the next big fight that you can have is Terence Crawford. The infighting has already started between the 2 separate factions of fans. Crawford fans, who want him to get the fight and believe that he can win it, and Canelo fans, some of which don't even think Bud deserves it. But to those fans, I would ask, who do you want Canelo to fight then? If he's not fighting David, doesn't look like he's fighting David, Crawford would be the next big fight, the next big thing.
Turkey's willing to pay for it.
Oh, that guy's got a war chest the size of the pyramids in Giza. He's got a lot of money, long money. If anybody can get Canelo the kind of dough that he's used to, it is Turkey Alalshikh, so something's got to give.
Even if they're getting this business relationship off to a rocky start.
Something's got to give. Something's got to happen, because it doesn't look like the David Benavidez fight is going to happen. And there are a lot of people that are disappointed about that. It would be very bad optics for Canelo Alvarez, and the loyalty of his fans would be tested. If you beat Edgar Berlanga, but you don't want to fight Terence Crawford, then who are you going to fight?
It's fight week.
For those of you not already aware, the Crawford versus Madrimov fight has snuck up on us, set to go down next weekend, and for Terence Crawford, it's fight week. Added pressure that you can't just go out there with Israel and win. No, you can't just scrape a win. You have to win and do it in good fashion. You have to look good. If you're trying to convince the world that you've got what it takes to jump up from 154 up to 168, and you can beat Canelo, you have to beat Israel first, and you have to do it in good fashion. Very good fashion.
Can he do it?
Israel is the naturally bigger fighter, bigger in terms of weight. He's younger than Terence Crawford, several years younger, well-schooled amateur with a pendulum step and a strong punch. Though I'd wager, because of Terence Crawford's wingspan, those long arms, and his timing that he's built up over the years, knowing when to throw a punch and what punch to throw, I figure he can catch Israel Madrimov with a hard counter junior coming in and perhaps knock him out. The question
Is whether or not his power's gonna carry.
he's knocked out every single welterweight that they've put in front of him. Every single one. He's proven himself to be a devastating puncher and a strong finisher as a welterweight. But what about as a junior middle? Because now you're going to be fighting a junior middleweight.
And if he does knock this guy out, how does he look up until the knockout? Because Crawford characteristically takes 2 to 3 rounds to get into a groove before he takes over.
Israel Madrimov is not to be trifled with, and I can't stress that enough. This guy is a genuine banana skin, and I don't know that Crawford's going to handle him as easily as he handled Errol Spence Jr. No, this guy's not an alcoholic that flips Ferraris on the weekend.
Right?
It all matters, and Crawford's got to look the part. Hold up his end of the bargain so that Turkey Alalshikh can then hold up his, and hopefully they can get Canelo Alvarez to play ball.
The silver lining
Is even if Canelo doesn't, and they can't convince him to play ball, you heard what Turkey said. He's determined to get Terence Crawford a big fight, with Canelo or without Canelo. So if things don't work out between them, he can always get in the winner of Fundora versus Spence.
if that shit even happens.
IBF champion Bakram Murtazaliev. Know that Jermel Charlo recently stated he'll be returning to the junior middleweight division. Could a fight between him and Terence Crawford happen? Now, you guys know that I'm skeptical. I don't actually know that Jermel can make 154 pounds anymore, but he says that he can, so we'll see.
Let's see if he does.
If he can, there might be a very big opportunity there waiting for him for the best money in boxing right now.
That's the silver lining.
Turkey's commitment to Crawford is not exclusive to a Canelo Alvarez fight. He's invested in the fighter. So whether or not Canelo plays ball, Turkey's staying on board, and he's going to make sure Terence gets the big fights.
And that's a good thing.
That is a good thing. And Turkey has finagled a situation where he's working with all the top promoters across the pond. Now he's working with some of the promoters here, so I think they can smooth things out where they get something going with Canelo.
I hope.
I'm hoping they can, but like I said, it's not a good idea to poke the bear. And that's how you have to look at Canelo in this situation.
Don't underestimate him or his audience.